Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Wildstyle from Panda Source Games. Wildstyle is a real-time competitive game for 2 to 5 players that takes roughly 30 to 40 minutes to play, in which the goal is to slowly tag this city. You're going through the city, you're tagging the city. Thematically speaking, you're, I assume, graffiti to some extent. Thematically speaking, you're making your mark on the city as you grab cards from the various decks as you try to play those cards in order to get the right area control around the board. Area control that has some degree of inherent point value in it, but also a degree of variable goals that will mix up what you're doing and why. The general idea, before we get into the how you play the actual turn structure and all that, well, lack of turn structure, there's 3 rounds, it's all real time, there's no turns, there's just whoever moves fastest. But the general goal, before we get to that, the goal is to get points in the game. Points are going to come from just generically having spots on the board through your tags. So for example, that spot over there, that shopping cart area, that's going to be a 2-point area right there. You can see each of these areas has different tags on them, showing you the different values everything has. This police station over here, that's going to be a 4-point area if you can get your tag there, but all tags at the end of the game do have to be in groups. Any solo tags at the end of the game, if this was the board structure at the end of the game, this tag would be removed because it's on its own. So your goal is to get a groupings of tags on the board on these ideally high point areas, but then more than that, you also have goals in play that are giving you another reason to go for things. For example, these tri-corners at the end of the game that will score at the end of the game, that gives you an additional 6 points for every pattern you have that gives you a tri-corner, a little triangle area over there. We have Rail Supreme that's going to give you points if you are grouped into a grouping of rails and train station. You'll get extra points for every rail and train station in that group, giving you a chunk of extra points that are available to you if you do it well. And we have Urban Plan over here. Urban Plan is going to give you points for whatever area you have the most of, which pairs nicely with Rail Supreme for going for all these train stations, where you can get chunks of points for your train stations in the game, for your rails and train stations in the game. Those goals, you can have a bunch of goals in the box, and they're all double-sided, and those will give you something else to go for as you try to play cards down to get these areas. So once again, you're trying to get tags on the board. You're doing so generically based on just having tags on the board, but then also based on specific goals you have, trying to get as many points as possible by placing those all out. As far as the turn structure, or a lack of turn structure, involves 3 rounds of play. In each round, you're going to add 6 tags to your board. So over here, each player right now has 6 tags. In each round, you're going to add 6 tags, so you always have 6 ones. And whenever you add tags, you add to any leftover tags from prior rounds. And what you're going to do is you're trying to play cards through these decks as fast as possible to get those tags on the board. And this is all real time. I'll talk through the 5 actions you can take, the 5 things you can do. In general, you're going to have one hand holding your hand of cards. Let's give myself a starting hand of cards. You have one hand holding a hand of cards, and the other hand does everything else in the game, and you're just trying to do so as quickly as possible so that you can get everything out. And the actions are as follows. The first action you have, and I'll do these in no particular order, but the first action you have is you can discard a card from your hand to one of these swap piles. So for example, I can go ahead and say, I'm going to discard this card over here because it's an empty swap pile. After that, you can also discard a card that matches either the color or the shape or the spot on that card. In this case, it matches the spot, and over here again, I can do that again, discarding cards to those piles. So you always have the opportunity to discard cards to empty piles, or if it matches the color or type on that pile. Again, using one hand the entire time, the rest of the time focusing on one hand holding cards, one hand doing stuff, one hand holding cards, one hand doing stuff. So action 1 is discarding a card to a swap pile. Action 2 is taking a card from a swap pile, grabbing the card, adding it to your hand. You have a hand limit of 3 cards. Action 3 is grabbing a card. Let's say we discard this card. Action 3 is grabbing a card from the top of any one of these piles, again adding it to your hand over there. Action 4 is going to be discarding cards, sending cards to one of these sets that you have over here. So at any given point, I can start a set, playing cards into my set. Although you have to be mindful that you only have 2 sets at any given time. So once you've played cards into a set over here, at this point, I'm kind of locked into these 2 patterns over here, at least until I draw more cards, at least until I clear those sets over here. So over here, we have these cards over here. If I have a police station now, I can't play it down until either of these are gone, giving me a spot to start another set. Because the ways you get tags on the board is whenever you remove a set of 3 cards, you will place a tag on the board. So your goal is you're trying to build sets of 3 cards to your area over here. Once I do so, for example, let's say I have this last tree over here, and I played it down over here, I can then clear these 3 trees. The color does not matter. I can clear these 3 trees, placing them off to the side, and putting a tag down on any tree spot on the board. Perhaps I'll go ahead and grab, I don't even know, I'll go ahead and grab this tree over here. Get a grouping of trees starting off in the corner over there. So your goal is, once again, you're trying to play cards, you're trying to grab cards from swap piles, you're trying to grab cards from the deck. You're trying to discard cards to the swap pile because of the limitation on your hand. You're trying to play cards to your sets because you're trying to get a set of 3 cards. But you're being mindful of the fact that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different types of cards, and you can only be building towards 2 sets at a time, so you kind of have to pick and commit, and you can play and draw from any of the piles in the game, which means at any given point, players are adding or grabbing or discarding cards, making it so that you can have whatever you need. Now, the last thing we're going to cover over there is there is an option to clear piles from the board. There's an option to clear a pile when you have less than 3 cards, although it does involve taking a police car. In general, if I have this one single residential area over here, and I keep trying to get rid of it, and I'm not making any progress in the game, what I could do at any point when I have 1 or 2 cards is I can take a police car over here, put it on my board, and then put this out on the board, clear this, put it off to the side, and put a tag down on a residential area. Let's put that down over there. And then at the end of the game, that police car is going to cost me, because at the end of the game, before you remove any solo tags, you're going to get rid of police cars to remove other tags from the game. So yes, you cleared your board, but you did so at the cost of the fact that you're guaranteed to have a tag taken off the board at the end of the game. And that is basically what's happening in WildStyle. You're going to go through 3 rounds of this. At the end of each round, the round will end when either when the decks run out of cards, all the decks run out, or when all but 1 players have gotten rid of all of their tags. If there's a single player left with tags, the round immediately ends. At that point, you're going to set up for the next round. You're going to shuffle and redistribute all the cards. You're going to give each player 6 more tags in addition to what they have. You're going to rinse and repeat for 3 rounds, and then the 3 rounds you're going to score for the control you have on the board from these sets of cards, as well as from the specific scoring objectives you have that modify what and how you're doing, and that is WildStyle. Once again, it's a real-time, competitive game for 2 to 5 players that plays in roughly 30 to 40 minutes, all about area control, of trying to gather sets of cards, like a set collection and area control, as you try to spread across the city as efficiently as possible, as quickly as possible, being mindful that the other players are all doing so at the same time, being mindful of the fact that you will be butting heads over here, you will eventually be clashing, and trying to figure out how to do so in a way that results in you having as many points as possible, and that is basically WildStyle. Which brings us to the review. Starting off with ease of play, this game is incredibly easy to dive into. Rulebook is fairly easy. Rulebook just quickly goes through everything. It's a short rulebook, has your setup, your actions, your 5 actions, how to cover each of those actions, the end of the round, starting a new round, a little bit of a, the scoring cards over here, the scoring objectives as far as how those modify things. It is a quick and easy rulebook to read. It is a quick and easy game to teach. Plays in roughly 30 minutes. Table space is what you see here. All in all, it's a very accessible game. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, this game has a good pacing to it. It does not outstay its welcome. It's a real-time game, which in general has been a genre that has been mixed for me. I generally like real-time games, but I also find that the real-time element almost adds a bit of a gimmick that makes the game less what I tend to be looking for, with few exceptions. But this game does a great job of having the tension of real-time, not outstaying its welcome, doing a good job of pacing the experience between those 3 rounds of play, so you kind of have a fast, frenetic degree of just movement forward. You also have those rounds in between where you can sit back, you can process, you can understand the game. Even for your first game, that first round will be overwhelming, but you'll walk into the second round understanding a lot more how to dive into the experience, what it is you need to do, and how it is you need to do it. And the game feels just challenging enough to confuse. Between these scorings over here, the fact that you have all these different areas, you have to be mindful of what that is, but it does have the various points listed on the card, so you don't have that lack in front of you. But then you're trying to look at the board, figure out where to go, and you're trying to do so quickly, because the more time you spend trying to figure out where to place your tag, the more time your opponents are starting to clear out their tags. It feels challenging as you go through it, as you try to balance the actual values of any individual in spot, the values of the cards you have in your hand, which cards look like you're likely to go for, which cards keep getting discarded by other players, because you know that if they continue to do so, you can keep picking up that factory, because people are getting rid of factories, and you might be able to get a bunch of factories because for whatever reason, people aren't going for them, and you might be able to clear out all your tags faster than the players, which might be enough, but it might not be enough too, because the tags are not alone to clear the round until everyone but one has gotten rid of their tags, which means being the fastest is not necessarily the best thing. You want to be the combination of the fastest and the best, but that's a delicate balance as you try to figure out how to move your way through it. And it feels satisfying across 3 rounds of play to slowly build up your tags. Those 6 tags don't feel that much, but then as you add 6 more and 6 more, as you end the game with 15, 16, 17, 18 tags on the board, the point scoring you can get from it adds up quickly, and the variable setups over here, the variable boards that they have, and the way these all combine, you have 1 board per player, they're double-sided, you can flip and rotate, whatever it is, they all add just enough of a degree of variety to the experience over here, and then the goals also add variety, giving you different reasons to place different ways. The cop cards give you a get-out-of-jail-free card, no pun intended, limited but a get out of jail free card that has a cost at the end of it, and so altogether this results in a well-paced real-time game that does not outstay its welcome, that feels challenging without feeling too challenging, that generally feels competitive without feeling too competitive. It just works well as almost a Spit-like experience. If you ever played the card game Spit, this game, from many of the real-time games I've ever played, this one feels probably most similar to Spit in the pacing of just trying to get what you need quickly, playing the one-handed, working towards your objectives. It works fairly well as a real-time experience. As far as what I don't like in the game, I'm not overall a fan of the theme and artwork. The artwork in general feels a bit muted on the boards, does what it needs to do, and the theme just doesn't resonate with me personally. And additionally, I'd like more goals. I want more goals in the game. The goals over here, we have a handful, and there is variety to them, but I already want more variety to the experience. I already want more reasons to continue to dive mech into them. The goals are a decent amount, but I kind of want more stuff in this. The real-time element is a bit of a gimmick. I generally find real-time is, and while I currently like WildStyle and currently enjoying it, I think I need more goals and possibly more something else to keep the experience continuously interesting as I dive into it more as time goes on in general. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, this is a real-time game. You kind of have to be okay with real-time. This is not a turn-based game, and if it was a turn-based game, it would be terrible. It would not stand out at all. The real-time really does add to this experience, but if you don't like real-time at all, I don't know if this will change your mind. I don't know if this game's going to overly, while I do enjoy this real-time game more than many real-time games I've played, it still is real-time. It has all the things that comes with. Additionally, it has a degree of the rich get richer in this game. It has a degree of the players who do well early rounds are likely to continue doing well as the game progresses. It is not that hard to see a situation in which a player has a clear strategic edge in the first round, and that edge continues across rounds 2 and 3. There's not a lot in terms of, not a lot, there's nothing in terms of catcher mechanics. There's no way for you to accelerate someone else or to hinder another player, and so ultimately a player who does particularly well, that's going to continue across the game. It's not that big a deal because the game's like 30-40 minutes, but it does, there's 3 rounds of play, and sometimes the player who's winning the first round or doing well in the first round is the same player who wins the game at the end of it. As far as final thoughts on WildStyle, overall I really enjoy this one. And I say that from the stance of somebody who typically does not keep real-time games in my collection. I find real-time games are always compelling in that first play, and then the more I play them, the less interested I am in them as I start to realize that the real-time gimmick is the main thing that held me in place, and it also comes with a degree of stress to it that I don't necessarily want for my board game experience. There are only a handful of real-time games that have stayed in my collection, and while I don't think WildStyle will enter that genre or that set of games that have stayed in my collection at a certain point, I do think it's staying for right now. Right now, WildStyle is compelling to me. Right now, the speed and simplicity was more enjoyable. I guess the ratio of work to stress to reward to all that was better for me than most real-time games, to the point that WildStyle 4 right now is sticking around. Will it last? I'm not confident. Like I said already, real-time for me is a gimmick that generally does not last at a certain point in time, but for right now, WildStyle is definitely one of the better real-time games that I've played. For me, this is a 3.5 out of 5. There's a limit to what the experience does. It is quick, it is fast-paced, it is enjoyable. It's a 3.5 out of 5. I really like it. I really enjoy it. The playtime, the reward, again, all those ratios just work out nicely as one that I can easily recommend as a good, enjoyable experience. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, if you're looking for something that gives you a similar feeling but with a more cooperative element, 5-Minute Dungeon is one I can recommend, or 5-Minute Marvel, or 5-Minute Mystery, any in that series. And if you're looking for something with a bit more of a competitive twist to a real-time game, Factory Funner from Board Game Tables is an excellent game as well. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.